Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Sequester podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Brent. How you doing, Brent?
Taran, the queen has spoken. Off with your head, I must say. I've been wanting to say that for so long.
Yeah. We're here to talk about episode 4 of season 3 of Sequester, so we are here to talk about it. This is the episode where we played the Kingdom game. So all about kingdoms.
Yeah, I'm very interested in your take on this because we haven't spoken since the episode aired. And if of any of the episodes so far, I felt like this was the most genius-like. And I wanted to know your overall thoughts on the twist and how you would approach it if you encountered it in a reality TV game show setup.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. Lots of, lots of moving parts here. The directions on the screen that you were supposed to pause and read. So, yeah, lots to talk about with the Kingdom game. And, of course, we also have the fallout from the previous episode to start this episode where we see Braden and Dina face off against Ty and Christine in a, tug of war with your whole body.
Yeah. Tug of war with your whole body. I like it.
Yeah.
What was it called again? I forget.
I don't remember.
Well. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
I actually felt like Braden and Dina would have a chance here. I felt like, just like overall, they were both like, I felt like just a little bit bigger than the other two, and weight matters a lot.
They have more mass.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel like that combined they have more mass, and I feel like Braden is bigger than Ty.
Right.
And Ty is like 100 pounds soaking wet, and I feel like that Dina is definitely bigger than Christine. So I don't understand what the problem was here. Dina, nobody gives a damn about your damn shoe. Nobody cares. Braden doesn't care. I was infuriating to watch. She's in the previous episode, and I think they even showed it in this episode where she's like, I said I would pop a tit to win this. And then the challenge starts, and she's caring about like Cinderella about her goddamn shoe. Like, who cares? Like, you're in the middle of the match. Like, try and win it.
Yeah, I feel like watching Sequester to me is just it's just like watching example after example of like what people do when they are losing and they want to make an excuse for why they're losing. Like when they get voted out, when they're thrown into a battle match, when they're losing a battle match, there's always something. Somebody is always being blamed, and it's never rational, and it's never like you guys got me.
Yeah, they can never just say, you know what, you got me, good game. Although I guess that wouldn't make really great TV. We like these people being messy, so just one person I would like to be like, you got me. Like the way that Drew, well, we'll get to it, but I feel like the differences between the way Drew took his off with his head as in comparison to the way Kevin took his off with his head was a study in reality TV gaming, I feel like.
Yes, so we get to this battle match right away. They both run, both sides. They're tied up and they're running to opposite ends of the field to ring the bell on the other side. It was like the challenge kind of challenge to me, and it did seem like Braden and Dina had the better initial strategy. They got low because they knew that there was going to be some pull back eventually, whereas Ty and Christine were just full on running straight up and just got yanked backwards.
I need a gif of that. I need that. Somebody get that to me ASAP.
And like the whole rest of the episode, I was noticing the entire time, like Ty and Christine had like really pronounced marks all across their shoulders and back because of the harness I guess they were in.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely not the right strategy initially. However, because then Braden and Dina were down on the ground, Ty and Christine were able to get to a better position after they got up, because then they were using their full weight, standing up, leaning back, whereas Braden and Dina were still crawling on all fours, which is not a good place to be dragging anybody.
No, you really need to be standing up and completely leaning forward. That's what you need to do because, like, Braden and Dina, I love you guys, and I was totally rooting for you. In fact, I feel like all of Sequester fandom, and besides, like, Ty's mom and Christine's mom, were rooting for Braden and Dina here to win this. And it was, I have to give the show credit. It was really infuriating to watch in, like, the best way possible because I'm rooting for them. I feel like they're not doing it correctly, but the tension and the drama that the challenge built as it went along, like, I felt like they, like, once I started watching, I felt like that Braden and Dina were going to lose Taran, but then it was like a slow death where you're like, it's coming, and you're like waiting for the axe to fall. So
well, it theoretically could flip at any moment because
I guess
as soon as they get a foothold, as soon as they get momentum, if the other two are completely worn out, which it seemed like they were, then they would have had a shot. But it didn't seem particularly likely. You're correct. And so immediately Dina is just on the ground, facing in the wrong direction, sans a shoe, and saying, "I don't have a shoe," and Braden is trying to direct her, and she's just like, "Sure, but I don't have a shoe. It fell off." It's like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Who cares? What are you doing? I was so infuriated watching this. Like, because I was rooting for them so hard. They both are two of my favorites. And in fairness to Ty and Christine, like, I haven't gotten to know them as much as I have. I feel like Braden and Dina have worn their hearts on their sleeve more than Ty and Christine have worn their hearts on their sleeve. So I feel like it's easier to get to know Braden and Dina. But, like, it was so tough to watch Braden and Dina in this one. And then we have the interesting, which I never thought I would encounter on a reality show, of maybe, I think they did this in Survivor or maybe Big Brother, where they could give away gold bars or something. Wasn't that like Big Brother 10? Where they could, yeah.
Big Brother, was it 10?
Yeah, where with April, she won the gold bars, and she tried to bribe Dan with the gold
10.
bars. Yeah. Braden offering money to Ty and Christine here. I don't know if he was like offering $500 total or $500 Canadian or what, but it was an interesting play on his part, but it didn't work, Taran.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, he's basically doing he realizes the position he's in. He's doing anything he can to try and make it work. I mean, if it's not against the rules, go for it,
Yep.
But it did not work. They're going to continue to get pulled. Dina is, I don't think, ever going to stand up the entire
round. Never.
And
never
look,
stood up.
Losing a shoe, it does make you lose traction for sure. She had less traction without the shoe, maybe. But take your sock off. I think your bare foot has some pretty good traction as well. So anyway.
Yeah.
So they get pulled.
Yeah,
it's over. They get pulled over. It seemed like they kind of gave up once they rung the first set of bells. There was no more attempt to like hunker down. They were just getting dragged.
Yeah, and I must have missed the part where they had to ring 2 sets of bells. Like maybe that was explained in the rules.
I was like, they won. Why are they still going?
Oh, why are they still going? Exactly. Yeah, I didn't understand that, but good for them. And they get to come back into the game, and Braden and Dina have to go to the pre-jury house. So we didn't get to see any of the pre-jury this episode. I'm encouraged to see how they are fitting in with the Mary Payton and Kim things that are happening over there at the pre-jury house. But we'll have to wait till the next episode to see.
Yeah, and there was a moment in this challenge where it seemed feasible that a tit might be popped. So there you go.
Yeah, I agree. And I heard that I talked to Audrey a little bit about this challenge. She said that Christine was really feeling it. Like she was, I think that they were worried that remember in the previous episode, there was a possibility that Drew and Erica might have been voted out at this, or at least been voted out, and then they might pull like Braden and Dina into the challenge. But if Drew had been in this challenge, I don't even know if it had lasted 10 seconds. Like it would have been over at a flash.
Yeah. So that was it for Braden and Dina. We're gonna now get to the new game, and it was really just it was explained to us how this worked, with some fancy graphics and then the rules, and then we went straight into it. We didn't hear them getting the explanation. We didn't see them strategizing beforehand or anything. We cut straight to who's voted in to where, and not too much explanation why. I think I would have liked to see some talk about like why these people were voted as the most influential, most powerful, or whatever. But basically, to start this kingdom round, all of the players voted, and I don't even. Do you know what the vote was? Was it a ranking? or did they choose one person?
I believe that I know Audrey's in the chat right now, or in some of the other contestants are. I believe that they were ranked on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best. Everybody was given a rating. Those ratings were then tallied and averaged, and the ranking that you saw on the screen was the ranking, Cameron being the highest ranked amongst the players, and I think Zach being the lowest ranked amongst them.
Okay, so it was ratings, maybe.
I believe it was,
and
yes.
And so the top two most powerful, popular, whatever you want to call it, people were Tori and Cameron, who they're gonna have some trouble this episode.
Just a little.
Yeah, they are the kingdom. They're in the kingdom. They are the queens of the kingdom, and they are going to choose amongst the peasants one person to nominate for elimination. That is their role. Then there are 3 in the grouping of the knights, who are directly under the kingdom. They go back and forth between the kingdom, the queens, and the peasants. And so they are the only means of communication with which the royalty communicates with the peasants. Then the rest of the house, the players, they are all peasants. I think there was, what, 9 of them total?
Yeah, 9 at the beginning, yeah.
Okay, so that's how the groupings work. So basically, the royalty, the kingdom, they are deciding amongst the peasants, like I said, which one of them to put up for elimination. There's going to be 3 total rounds. So anybody that has been successfully nominated into potential elimination is going to be up for elimination in the vote at the end of the 3 rounds. So basically, the structure, if it doesn't get overthrown, how it looks is what we saw the first 2 rounds, where the kingdom is going to nominate one person. The knights are going to communicate that to the peasants. The peasants all agreed or disagreed with the decision, and then communicated their decision to the knights. And then the knights decided whether or not basically to overthrow or let it go through. And how they do that is by predicting what the peasants are going to do. So if they think the peasants are going to say no, then they can say the peasants said no, and the nomination would go through anyway, correct?
Yeah, that's the one part that I think was a little confusing. The one thing that was well, it was clear, but I don't know that I really liked the way that the show did it, was where it is, if the peasants, like, let's say you were able to get a majority of people to, reject what the kingdom has said, that even if the knights were able to correctly predict that you rejected it, then the nomination would still go through. So you basically had to fool. It encouraged deception on the part of the peasants toward the knights. So I guess that's what they were going for. But there was, even if Drew was able to get people to not go along with his nomination, which he almost was successful at, it was 5-4. Even if he was able to do that, he would still need for the knights to basically not be able to predict what the peasants have done in order for him to avoid being thrown up there for elimination.
Right. So if you are the person nominated by the kingdom as a peasant for elimination, you have 2 ways basically of getting out of that, of not going up for elimination. The first way is to trick the knights into thinking that the majority is going one way while secretly they're going another way. This is what we saw Jessica do in round 3. The other way, I assume, would be to convince the knights to intentionally overthrow the kingdom by voting against what they know to be the peasants' decision, and then you would be safe. And in the event that happens, that the knights choose the opposite of what the peasants choose, then the kingdom gets overthrown, and those 2 are going to be put up for elimination. And the person who is nominated is going to be safe, and then the knights are going to take over as the new kingdom.
Yep, that's exactly how it works. Then you're right. There are 2 ways to avoid being put up for elimination, and you nailed them both.
Right. So what we saw was that Cameron and Tori were the kingdom, and they initially, right away, basically decide Drew should be the first person that we put up. To go through that decision, they were basically like, we want Drew gone. In the last round, a lot of people were considering getting rid of Drew, but they didn't. And so we assume that there will be support. They don't want people to be against it. They want to make sure that the knights are on board. Really, if you're the kingdom, the most important part about this game is making sure that your knights are on board, because if your knights are on board, then you are mostly safe. Your biggest threat is the knights deciding they want to turn on you and become the kingdom. That's the thing you want to avoid the most. So if I'm the kingdom, I am doing whatever I can to talk through this decision with the knights to make sure that they are on board. If they are on board, there's 3 of them. There's a bunch of peasants who hopefully at least one of them is going to rat any kind of plan to trick the knights. If you can get the knights on board, you're probably going to be set. It seemed like that was basically what Cameron and Tori were able to do in the first 2 rounds. So the knights agree. Drew is the plan. They go, they say it. And it's relatively straightforward in this first round.
Relatively straightforward. I would like to point out here that all throughout this episode, and by the way, Erica, Christine, and Jayla were voted into the Knights. So they are in the prime position here. I think most people would agree that the Knights were probably in the best position out of everybody. They were 3rd, 4th, and 5th most popular according to the ratings of the house guests, and which is hilarious to me because to hear other people tell it, Erica is somebody that is not well liked by the house. A lot of people don't care for Erica. They're always talking behind her back, and yet she was voted 4th most popular in the house, according to the people who are playing the game. Secondly, Tori and Cameron talking to Erica like, oh, well, a lot of people wanted you and Drew out last round, but we didn't want to let you go, Erica. So we said no to that. We wanted to protect you. And then secretly behind her back, they're like just dragging her left, right, and center. I don't know about you, but I said this last week, and I'm even more so this week. Erica is always telling the truth, and these people don't believe her. Like, she was totally on board with Tori and Cameron. She was in with them. She was telling them, like, honestly, I am like true to you guys, and we'll do this, and I like you, and you're my girls, and oh, thank you for saving me in the last round. Meanwhile, Cameron and Tori are dragging her, and which is fun, I guess. But when you see that Erica is being truthful with them, I felt like my heart went out to her a little bit in terms of like, she's trying to make personal relationships here, and people just don't want to let her play. So I was a little annoyed by that.
Yeah, Erica is a Kevin Martin in the sense that she tells the truth and nobody ever believes her, even when she's telling the truth. And she is most loyal to people who are not loyal to her.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. I would also say that she comes off a little bit like Rachel Riley to me. That's what I get when I'm watching her, is Rachel Riley vibes, because she seems like she's a mean girl, but she's not. Like, that's how, like, when I first interviewed Erica, we talked about her pre-season interview. She felt like a mean girl to me when we were not here for Erica. But then watching her over the last 4 episodes, I really felt like I get to know her, and I get her now. So I'm definitely team Erica in this episode, and I'm a little annoyed that Tori and Cameron are just dragging her for seemingly no reason. But anyway, moving on.
That's like a running storyline throughout the episode, is that Erica is playing this straight. She thinks that she's in some kind of trio with Tori and Cameron. She's more loyal to Cameron seemingly even than Tori. And meanwhile, Cameron and Tori are both like, she's playing us. She's definitely playing us. She's going to screw us over as a knight. It's going to happen. And then it doesn't happen, but I think they assume it happened. And Cameron is just going to be very upset with Erica. Maybe you can help explain this a little more to me. I had a really hard time following why Cameron was so mad at Erica.
I don't understand either. And I know that her dad is always listening to our podcast, and Cameron comes around sometimes. Maybe she's in the chat. Can somebody please explain to me why you don't like Erica? Like, I don't even think Tori liked Erica that much. I just like, what's your problem with Erica? Leave her alone.
Well, I think that they already didn't like her very much, but in particular, it seemed like was it that they thought that Erica was like the mastermind behind the overthrow, that she had actually betrayed them? I know they spoke about that possibility.
Yeah. I don't know if I felt like that Erica and Christine and Jayla were pretty believable when they went to, at the end of the episode, Tori and Cameron, and were like, no, we said yes, we voted yes. We thought it was them that tricked us, basically, in pointing to the peasants and saying, hey, they put one over on us, and that's why you guys were dethroned. It really had nothing to do with us. Erica, I think, insofar as Cameron is concerned, is one of those people that she's just never going to believe. So I don't know what her problem is.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming it's that she thought that as a knight she was betrayed by Erica, but it was kind of confusing. Because there was a conversation where Erica was like, "I'm gonna do whatever you want," and Cameron was just like, I don't believe a word you're saying. You screwed me over. And then afterwards, she was like, "Oh, the people who I don't know." I was very, very confused about the whole situation there. And it was definitely not a good look.
No, you definitely
for
nailed it.
Cameron.
Like Erica's always telling the truth, and people just don't believe her. That's the thing. So I was like, I watched this episode with Kim and Tina, and I was literally screaming with her at the television, like, Erica's telling the truth. Like, why don't you guys believe her? Ugh.
Yeah. Well, so the first round of the kingdom. It's communicated to the knights that Drew is going to be the target. That's communicated to the peasants, and as I said, it's relatively straightforward. There is going to be a majority yes vote. We see
barely
right. We see Hunter. His strategy throughout the whole thing is that he is always going to agree with the kingdom. He had some kind of prearranged plan there that they flash back to. I'm not exactly sure when that took place, but basically the thing was he'll agree with whatever they say. They won't put him in. He won't get any blood in his hands. I thought he played this round very well.
I thought he played it well as well. It wasn't exactly scintillating from an audience point of view, but I thought that he played it about as well as he could as a peasant. Like, as long as it's not me, I'm giving you a yes, and I'm not going to try to trick you. He even ratted them out in round 3 and tried to, give them a heads up, like, hey, there's something fishy going on here, but they didn't really believe him. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they thought he didn't have his pulse on what was really happening.
Well, the trick didn't actually go through, right? That they were just planning it, but then because they were like, oh, we're going to tell them yes, but then we're going to say no. And then he was like, they're going to do that. And then they ended up not doing that anyway.
I thought the peasants definitely voted no in round 3 to Jessica's nomination, but then the knights voted yes. And that was
round 3. He didn't rat them out in round 3. He was oblivious to the plan in round 3.
Was he? I don't know. I thought he.
I thought he was, because he was like, I voted yes, but they've voted no, and I'm fine with that.
I know somebody ratted it out to Jayla sometime along the way.
That was round 2.
Was it round 2? Okay,
I believe.
Cool. All right, cool. All right, well, if you say so. They'd all blended together. Sorry.
All right. Well, again, round 1, we see Hunter doing that. Dustin is also going to be a relatively straightforward voter for the first 2 rounds, at least. A lot of people just voting yes. We're going to see a lot from Kristen in this episode, and she has turned it on. She says, you know what? Like, my allies were just put up against each other, and that sucked. And I don't really have anybody left in this game, so screw them all. I'm gonna be slitting throats left and right.
Yeah, she seems like she's had it with everybody officially. That is what she said. Her main 2 allies were Braden and Dina. They're gone, and she's just like, you know what? I give no fucks to anybody at this point. And she's going to continually lie to people in this episode. Every time she said she was going to vote yes, she voted no. If she said she was going to vote no, she voted yes. So she was definitely trying to fool people just to create some chaos, which I think she felt like would benefit her in the end. Didn't catch up with her this round, but I'm nervous for her if she continues to play like this in the future.
It's very much the Nicole spot from Big Brother 21, where she's completely on the outs, and she's just throwing things out there, trying to mess up the status quo. And so what she wants to do is have the kingdom overthrown at some point. She is intimidated by the fact that these 2 women, Tori and Cameron, were the most popular people in the house. That's something that is dangerous. If you want to shake up the status quo, then you want to put in the people who are the most popular right now. And so she wants to make sure that the kingdom is overthrown at some point, and eventually it is. And she was definitely a big part of making that happen in round 3. But first, we have to talk about round 2. In round 2, the plan is, okay, we just put in Drew, who's an ally of Drew. We've got Kevin, we've got Zach, and
Ty, maybe?
Ty. So this is around when Tori is going to reveal to the Knights and Cameron that Zach has an LOS. She spotted it in his pocket. What are these people doing, Brent? Why are they always showing off their LOSs in their pockets?
Apparently, they can't help but expose themselves. I don't know what's happening. It was a little weird, because at first she said she saw it in his pocket, but then later on she said that she saw him find it. Tori said about Zach. So I'm thinking she probably saw him find it. But then, and maybe later it lit up in his pocket or something. Just a future memo to people who play this game in the future. Make sure you have your LOSs turned off. I don't know if they just light up accidentally or whenever, but if you have one, make sure it doesn't light up in your pocket. Otherwise, people are going to see it.
Yeah, they're pretty big. So I don't know if there's another place you can put them, but in your pocket is probably not the best spot.
Yeah,
For them.
I agree. I'm not sure. I don't even know how. Don't ask me. I don't want to tell everybody where my hiding places are because you never know in the future if I might end up on this show sometime. So moving on.
Audrey in the chat says you can't turn the LOS off. It's meant to make it harder to hide. There you go.
Okay. Well, I guess I wouldn't keep it on my person then, or you would definitely have to like. You would like, to be blunt, you would have to like stick it down your pants somewhere. Like you can't just put it in your pocket, otherwise it's gonna light up somewhere.
Are you allowed tape?
I don't know if you're allowed tape or not. Like I know
bring
that they're
some
not
black
allowed.
tape.
They're not allowed much, so I don't know what they would be allowed. I'd probably just keep it in my bag and hope somebody doesn't go through my bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd carry some like really thick like black like baggies to put in my pocket.
Oh yeah, that'll work. Yeah, they you can't just bring whatever you want to this place. Like they definitely go through your shit. I saw that at the beginning. So like they take your phone away, you don't get anything, Taran. So all your plans are out the window.
Yeah, no, we'd figure it out. I'd ask all the rules and I'd figure out something there. So it's revealed that Zach has an LOS, and so Tori comes up with this plan, although I guess it's a plan for next time, but initially they're going to say now that they're going to leave Zach alone, and they're going to put in Kevin for round 2, that he is an ally of Drew, and seems like people would be able to agree with that, and should be another easy one. But it did require some selling to the Knights. I wasn't a huge fan of how they sold it to the Knights. Cameron in particular was just like, I mean, it's fine with you, I mean, I know he's allied with you, but what are you going to do? Get out of here.
This is terrible. Like, I mean, we just got done praising Cameron in the last round. She could not have played this round worse. Now, granted, she was placed in an unenviable position in the kingdom. But once she's there, I feel like she definitely played it probably as bad as she possibly could. They seem to have a plan. Like they're gonna I feel like you have to have a plan. They didn't have a plan. Number one, first they went for Drew, then they said, well, and then she did say after that we'll go for Kevin, and then they did go for Kevin, but they didn't know what they were going to do for round 3. I feel like they did change the narrative in round 3 by then all of a sudden like what the F going for Jessica, which I didn't really understand. Also, I feel like Kevin, you have to know your party, and I feel like Kevin, of the people who are there, is a really vindictive person and is most likely to really come back at you if he was ultimately eliminated. You also have to get a feel for the house. Like it seemed to me like Cameron and Tori wanted Drew out. And if you want Drew out, why are you placing a juicy target in Kevin up alongside him? Because then the people in the house might actually vote Kevin out, which is what happens in the end here. You're not going to get what you want anyway. And of the people who are up for, or who should be up for elimination here, I feel like that Drew clearly should be the one who is the target of the vote here. You do not want to allow him into a battle match. I don't want to compete with him any day of the week. I don't understand why they did this. They should have, if they're going to go for Drew round 1, and that went through 5-4, but still went through, then I feel like for rounds 2 and 3, they should just put up 2 pawns. Even if they are eventually dethroned themselves, they're not going to get the votes. I feel like that would be better than now making a new enemy in Kevin here, who you know is going to come back and try to grab you and pull you into a battle match.
So, yeah, I mean, I was definitely like, I was ready to be like, that was a mistake because these Knights are going to overthrow these people. They're going to be put up for elimination. Ultimately, though, they did keep their Knights on board for all 3 rounds, so I can't really fault them too much there with how they treated them. But what I can fault them for is that, again, as I mentioned at the start, I think that the best way to play as the Kingdom is to invite your Knights in and collaborate with them. Get them to start naming names. If you agree with the Knights as for like who to choose, then worst case scenario, ideally, best case scenario, you keep your Knights on board for all 3 rounds and you never have to worry about them overthrowing you. But then, even if you do get overthrown by the peasants, which is what happened, at least you can go to Kevin or whoever and say, look, I'm sorry, but we talked it through with the Knights who are trying to play the middle, and you were the only person that we could all agree on. We didn't want to do you, but we had to do what the Knights said, or they would have overthrown us. At the very least, you can throw some doubt into whatever he's doing, and so on and so forth. So by taking charge and being one of only 2 people that is in charge of the decision, and saying you guys have to listen to us, you were also isolating yourselves as one of only two people that is responsible for putting these people in danger. And that's where the fault is going to lie, I think.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear from you, because the question that I've been getting asked by so many people on social media is, were Cameron and Tori doomed from the start? And I was trying to make a case to them that they were not, that they just played this badly and really didn't have a plan. But what you say is even better to me, where like really just like do the opposite of what they did, which is what they did was Cameron and Tori were basically like, you know, go do what I say. Like we said, Kevin, we don't care what you think. Go do that. Which you even saw Cameron in confessional, which by the way, like I apologize for the audio listeners right now, but I'm going to do like a visual representation of what Cameron does in her confessionals, which her face is like this. like she does lots of like weird movements with her head, and she always has like her mouth pursed together when she's trying to get across a point, when she's irritated with people or when she's incredulous with people. And I felt like that it didn't come off very well, but she could have at least played it a little bit better if she would have taken into consideration what the Knights were telling her here, which is that Kevin may not be your best choice here.
Yeah, I mean, I still enjoyed the confessionals, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Listen, from a reality TV point of view,
Yeah.
she's fucking great. Like, Cameron, we love you. But from a gameplay standpoint, you played this terrible.
Yeah. So Kevin is the one that's chosen. The Knights are going to go and let the peasants know that it's Kevin. He's obviously pretty annoyed. There's going to be some back and forth. He's going to try to convince them to fake out some sort of plan. This is when I believe Hunter goes to Jayla and says, hey, they're trying to trick you. It ultimately doesn't happen, and the Knights are going to confirm, and Kevin is going to be off with his head. And as they come down to relay that message, he says, if I get voted out, it's you two going to the battle match.
Which, you freaking idiot.
Yes!
Kevin, I'm talking to you. You stupid ass dummy. Do you not realize by saying that you're giving carte blanche to everybody else in the house to say, oh, well, if he gets voted out, we know who he's picking for a battle match. He's picking Tori and Cameron. He just told us right now. Like, you freaking idiot. Taran, like, let him have it.
Well, yes, it's very frustrating because I feel like so far this season has just been like example after it's over and over again. The people keep making the same stupid mistake with Matt saying, oh, of course I won't choose you for a battle match. Brayden, I'm not going to choose you. I'm not going to choose you for the battle match. And now Kevin, the worst of them all, in front of everyone. I am definitely throwing you two in the battle match. He's basically signing his own death warrant. I don't understand why people keep making the same mistake over and over and over and over. Of course, people are going to vote you in if they think they know what you're going to do.
Like, this is the point in time where you have the most power. When they said off, which, by the way, I love that little bit that Sequester put into that when they have the kingdom come down and say, off with your head. Cameron and Tori didn't do it very well. I think I did it with more pizzazz, but they did it. I would have liked to, like, you're on TV, like, have a little more fun with it here. But then when Kevin walks out and he says that, like, right before he says that, he has the most power because he could literally put anybody into the battle match. If he says nothing to Cameron and Tori there, I know he's irritated, but if he says nothing, if he just says, you know what, good game, guys, I totally understand. You had to do what you had to do. I totally get it. Then they are much less likely to vote him out because they sense no animosity between Tori and Cameron, which means he could literally put anybody into the battle match. Like, that's his one card to play. Like, you're already up for nomination. There's nothing you can do at that point. You might as well at least save the one card, but then it's like he's playing poker and he just puts all of his cards face up on the table for everybody to see. Taran.
Yeah, and it's terrible. I would be surprised if this wasn't the main and only reason that he was eliminated in the vote this round.
I have to agree because it's eventually going to be a 10 to 3 to 1 vote with 10 people voting for Kevin here, which is that is incredulous to me that more people didn't want to get Drew out. But that just goes to show you a couple things. Number one, that this mistake that Kevin made in telling Tori and Cameron, hey, I'm going to pull you into the battle match. And number two, Drew's social game, which I feel like we haven't talked enough about. But even though he is a huge physical threat, I feel like that Drew is genuinely more liked than people like Kevin and other people in the house. Like, people enjoy his presence. So even though he's a massive physical presence and a huge threat in these challenges, they still can't get the votes to get rid of him, even when they have him up on the board and like basically dead to rights.
Yeah, I mean, he's physically obviously much more intimidating than Kevin, but at the same time, when you are looking at the two next to each other, and one of them is like, it's mayhem, it's mayhem, I'm putting you two in if I go in, oh, it's mayhem, and then the other one is like, look, I just want to get to my comfortability zone. I need to get some comfortability, please.
Yes.
It's just, there's a difference there, you know?
There's a little bit of a difference, just a little bit, yeah. But anyway, so whatever. Kevin, off with your head, you're out. Well, you're at least up for nomination. You still could have saved yourself at this point, but you're up for nomination. We're into round 3 here.
Yeah. So round 3, this is when Tori comes up with the plan. We're not going to do what we did the last 2 times, which is throw one of the guys in that are aligned with each other, because we want to keep Zach safe, because he has an LOS, and if we talk to him, we keep him safe, then he can use the LOS to save one of us if we get chosen, if Kevin chooses us for the battle match, and then one of us will be safe, and we'll have the opportunity to maybe both still be in the game together. And this, before even talking about the Jessica thing, is a terrible plan. This is really terrible.
What the hell? Like, are these women just used to getting what they want? Like, is what you're working with that fresh that you think that you can just get Zach to hand over an LOS out of nowhere, and he's known you for what, a day and a half? Like, this is freaking crazy. Like, they could not have played this worse, and I don't understand the point of, like, saving Zach. Like, if anything, they should have nominated Zach. Zach should have been somebody they should have been going after. He doesn't really have much in terms of anybody else, in terms of alliances or people that are working with him. He's not a big game player. He has an LOS. I feel like that would be good to also put up there. Like, if you're going, like, here's the thing. If you're going with this plan, we want to have target after target after target on the board, and you don't want to isolate Drew to try and get him out, which it seems like what they were trying to do, then at least go full bore. At least go through with your plan. But to change plans in midstream here, I felt like was a bad call. Just made them look shady that out of nowhere, now they're going for Jessica. I didn't understand their thought process on this at all.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong here, but I feel like Zach was the perfect person to be the third vote here. You say, look, Zach, we're going to throw him up. It's as a pawn, but it's because he has an LOS. And if you're one of the peasants and you have the opportunity, or should we put in the kingdom, or should we let Zach go in and maybe burn his LOS? That's maybe the one thing that will prevent me from overthrowing in the third round. And the third round is the one where you want to have the strongest case, I think, because that's the most likely time for the peasants to overturn, because there's no, potential threat of retribution or anything like that.
Right.
So I feel like Zach would have been perfect, but not so.
It also would have given them, it also would have given them an out in terms of, like, it's not like we're not targeting you, Zach, because we don't like you. We're targeting you because you have an LOS. Like, that's right. Like the long and short of it. Whereas, like, Kevin felt like personally offended and indignant that he was put up for nomination. Whereas it was somebody like Zach, you have a reason to get him out, or at least put him up for nomination. I feel like he would have understood it. The rest of the house would have understood it, and it would have allowed them to do what they were trying to do, which was basically wash their hands of round 3 and just get it done. Like, that was the whole point in putting up Jessica in the first place. But I felt like there was a more expeditious way to do it.
Yeah, and again, the plan. So obviously the plan to get Zach to use his LOS on one of them, it sounds like a dumb plan outright, I think, because obviously why would he do that? But it's probably dumber than you can even anticipate because of the logistics of it. And he explains it to Cameron later.
Yep.
Here's the thing. If you two get chosen for a battle match and I use my LOS on you, then he has to renominate somebody, and I now just used my LOS to save you to go against what he wanted. He's just going to throw me in, because of course he would.
Which they never apparently think of. Like, it's
right.
So infuriating watching them talk about the possibility of Zach using an LOS on them. It was just... the only way this, like, if you're going with the assumption that he would use his LOS on you, the only way it's going to work was for Cameron to literally get the LOS But then everybody knows that Zach gave it to her, so I don't even think he would have done anything. Like what I was going to propose was Cameron to get the LOS out of sight of everybody, so that no one knows that he gave it to her. That way, his hands are clean and she's able to use it without any retribution to Zach necessarily. But that also leaves him open. Like somebody's going to have to go into that battle match, and word has gotten out by this point that Zach had an LOS and he might have given it to Cameron. So I don't even think that would have worked.
Yeah, this is like when you're playing chess or something and you make a move and you're like, haha, check. And then you look at the board again and you're like, oh my God, what did I just do?
Right? That was
oh
what
my God.
Cameron... Yeah, when he was talking to Cameron, he was like, so like that's not gonna work, and here's why. And she was like, oh, because it was so awkward, by the way. Cameron, you did such a terrible job. Like, it was so awkward watching her try to get him to use the LOS on her. She was like, so what we're thinking was maybe like, you have an LOS, so like, I mean, the possibility of you like maybe using the LOS.
I mean, it's yours,
like,
but I see what like it felt like she knew how dumb it was and couldn't like put a straight face, like
right?
couldn't
she was
present it with a straight face.
She was embarrassed for all of us. That's what was happening. She couldn't even keep a straight face on the screen, which is why she was giggling and laughing, because it was so terrible, Cameron.
Basically, like, you'd have to be so dumb to do this that doesn't matter how I present this, so I'm just going to be, like, as light as possible and hope that you're just really dumb, I think.
Unfortunately for her, Zach is not that dumb. He is not going to use an LOS on her anytime in the near future, and their plan has gone to shit here in terms of hoping to keep Zach safe, because they're going to instead target Jessica. And here's where things get a little bit more fun, Taran.
Yes. So again, it's Tori that comes up with the idea that Jessica would be a great alternative nomination here. Just
why?
As a pawn, just because she's out of the way. Clearly, Tori and maybe a few other people have a very different perspective on Jessica than we do, because they're all unaware of her activities in previous rounds. In particular, the whole, West freaking out on Kevin, like that sort of thing. Like, she has been doing some things behind the scenes that clearly people are unaware of at this point. And so Tori views Jessica as somebody that's completely just out of the game, not doing anything. Like, oh, time for her to earn her stripes. I think I even heard, was it Jayla who was like, I like Jess, but she's got to do something. Like, here's a good opportunity for her to do something.
Yeah, Jayla also said that about somebody else too. So these people, they think high and mighty of themselves. Let me tell you, the kingdom and the knights here. Yeah, they are not aware of Jessica and what she's been doing in the game, which is a good thing. But also, the fact that they're unaware of it now, they're going to be illuminated to that prospect that she's actually a player very, very soon, because Jessica's able to move some hearts and minds here and get people to... It's not just a matter of them voting down her nomination. She's able to get people to then lie to the Knights, which, like, that is some big ball shit right there. If you can get other people in the game to throw their own social currency under the bus, and like Dustin was lying to Jayla, other people who voted down her nomination were lying to Christine and Erica and saying, hey, yeah, we're going to do what you said, we're going to let this nomination go through, but secretly they were not going to let it go through. They were willingly lying to the Knights, and Jessica caused that to happen. I know Kristen also was one of the movers and shakers in this round, but that was astounding to me. I really feel like that people are underselling Jessica in terms of her gameplay ability. And if I wasn't convinced of it before, I was this round when she was able to get a majority of people, I think 5-2 in that round, there's only 7 people voting, to say, no, we're not going to allow this nomination to go through, and we're going to trick the Knights and tell them that we actually are allowing this to go through, because that's the only way that the kingdom would be overthrown.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a game all about surviving. When the gun points at you, yes, survive the trigger pull. And this was really just a random, like, we'll throw her in as a potential nominee. And she was able to escape it with very little blood on her hands, it seems. She was certainly not chosen for a battle match. It seems like nobody's particularly upset with her for what she did, apart from maybe Cameron at the end. but I feel like that's not the sort of thing that will last. So really, again, props to her and Kristen as well, who really wanted to throw a wrench into the power structure and did so even more cleanly than Jessica did, even though she did less, I think, to actually make it happen. So those are definitely two to look out for, I think, as we move forward here. But yes, Jessica is going to pitch. She's going to get the peasants, most of the peasants, on board. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but she was able to avoid the mine of Hunter, who probably would have ratted them out if he knew about the plan, and I think.
Yeah.
So, really, really adeptly done, and was able to overthrow the kingdom, which is going to force Cameron and Tori into potential elimination.
Yeah, this was the part where I actually wasn't clear on what would happen. So I didn't understand in watching this that if the kingdom is overthrown, that they're then up for elimination. I didn't get that part because I remember like the Sequester Access account tweeted a few days ago that anywhere from like 3 to 7 people could be nominated for elimination here. And I was like, well, how could that happen? And I didn't understand that if they're overthrown, that they are then up for elimination themselves. I thought that then everything would be reshuffled based on the rankings, and then there would be a new round 3, basically. Like you would keep going until you got a yes from the peasants here. But obviously I didn't read the rules or I didn't understand what was happening. So Cameron and Tori are up for elimination along with Drew and Kevin. And one of those 4 people is going to be going home with no chance to win their way back in. Remember, we're pre-jury here. So if you're voted out here, you do not have a chance to battle back. At least right now.
I was mostly confused about how we get to 7. Because if they're overthrown the first round, then 3 of the knights become they go into the kingdom. Then they get overthrown. That's another 3. That's 5 in there. Does that mean there's only 2 knights that go up in the next round, or is there 3 again? Because I assume they would need 3 because the knights can't tie a vote, right?
Right.
And then there'd be 3 in the kingdom again. If they got overthrown again, then it would be 8.
Maybe it was 8. Maybe it was 3. Was it 3 to 7 or 3 to 8?
I definitely
don't know. We
saw
never
7,
got that
and
far.
it confused me. So.
Okay, maybe. Well, they never got that far, so maybe they were just thinking hypothetically like me. 7 was a typo, apparently.
Okay.
Thank you, Noah.
There you go. Honestly, that was like before I saw it happen. That was the thing that confused me the most. I was like trying to get to 7.
Yeah, I love that you think of stuff like this because I always text Audrey questions whenever I have like in the weeds questions about some of these twists and challenges. I'm like, look, Taran's gonna ask me, so I really need this answer.
All right, so the kingdom is overthrown. Tori and Cameron are now up for elimination, and so now we get to the mad scramble of who's going to vote for who. This one I think was very straightforward from the outset because, of course, Kevin is there. And he said exactly what he's going to do. So for everyone that isn't Tori or Cameron or anybody that doesn't want to see Tori or Cameron in the battle match, easy vote. Vote out Kevin. You're safe. Hands clean.
Right. There was a lot of stuff that was happening here. Drew was like a little worried about himself. Erica was having to choose between her 2 main allies in terms of Kevin and Drew. Thomas was again throwing people under the bus. He was like talking with Drew, but then like ratting him out to other people. He even changed his name to One Lucky Weasel on Twitter because he knew that I could appreciate it because he can't even take one flipping episode off without throwing his allies under the bus. But be that as it may, none of that really matters because what matters is what Kevin said when it was off with his head, and he said he was going to throw up Cameron and Tori for the battle match here, and the house knows it, and so he just made their job way easier, and I don't even think he realizes it. I saw him on Twitter last night going, he said, I don't know how I feel about this episode of Sequester. Obviously not great since you just got eliminated, but like, dude, you had it within yourself to change your fate here, and you just made it so easy for the rest of the house to vote you out, knowing exactly what you're going to do with the one power you had left.
Yeah. And I will say, once he is eliminated, I do think it's the right move to follow through with what you said. You shouldn't have said it to begin with, but those people that say they're going to do one thing and then once they're eliminated, they do something else. I think that only increases the volatility that people perceive in you if you do get back into the game. I think that that's probably what he was going for was, hey, I'm staying true to my word. And if I come back in, then I still have my allies because I was loyal to them and I did what I was going to say, what I said I was going to do. But he was also a little bit obvious about it. Hey, my 2 alliances, I am staying loyal to my 2 alliances and doing what I said. And then also, of course, again, it's much better to just avoid having said that you were going to do a thing in the first place. It's better to just have not said it, and then if you do get eliminated anyway, that's when you say, yeah, well, look, I'm a loyal guy, and I'm going to go after these people. So, you know, maybe like one little piece of like he did this a little bit better than some people do, but he also did the previous thing much worse than I've seen anybody do so far. So bad moves.
Bad moves all around. There was so much bad gameplay happening in this episode, but it only got worse as time went on, because once we got to the end here and Kevin was eliminated, it was so infuriating to then watch him say, well, you know, I got my 2 close allies, you know, I'm loyal to you, I'm going to pick Cameron and Tori. And so Cameron and Tori come up, they're bitter about being picked for the battle match, and Cameron is like, you know who he's talking about, guys. You know who he's talking about, Reed, Drew, and Erica. And I'm just like, Taran and I just got done praising you, Cameron, for your gameplay the last couple of weeks. In fact, last week was probably your best week yet. And yet you go into this episode, play probably about as bad as you possibly could, acting a little entitled. And then at the final moment when he picks you for the battle match, you're just burning your bridges to Drew and Erica. Again, Erica was liking you, trying to work with you. Again, Erica always tells the truth. She's trying to like have her people here. And like here's the thing, Cameron might come back into the game. It's only a 50-50 shot whether her or Tori is going to be eliminated. If you come back into the game, you're going to need allies. You're going to need people. You certainly don't want to have enemies. And I don't know what she was doing by calling out Drew and Erica there. I mean, yeah, she didn't say their name, but everybody knew who she was talking about. I mean, here's the thing, Cameron. Everybody knew who Kevin was talking about. Everybody playing there, everybody watching at home knows that he's talking about Drew and Erica. There's no reason why you then have to step in it as well and burn your bridge with them. And I was just so bummed watching that, because I was like, if she actually comes back into the game, there's no chance in the world that Drew and Erica are going to work with her, even if they have to. So, because it's obvious that she's against them by throwing them under the bus publicly in front of everybody.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, because again, it seems like when you're chosen for the battle match, even when you've seen it coming, there's just something about it that just makes people lose their minds, like the emotion of it, and you just need to lash out at somebody. And I think because she already knew that Kevin was going to pick her, it was like, well, then I need to lash out at somebody new.
Yeah,
and
right.
I guess that was Erica, who she felt had betrayed her. Again, maybe because she thought that the Knights had secretly overthrown them on purpose. But that, even if that had happened, it didn't really impact anything.
That's only one person. That's the thing that's more infuriating, is that, like, even if you're convinced that Erica is against you, you then still have to be convinced that Jayla or Christine was against you. Like, I mean, Erica couldn't do anything on her own. She's only 1 vote of 3 of the Knights. Jayla and or Christine would have had to also go along with any plan that she might have had in order to overthrow you, which obviously wasn't the case.
Yeah, again, very confusing. And maybe, you know, I'm looking into the mind of somebody that's like irrationally angry at the moment, but I was just very confused about what this whole thing was. Again, definitely not a good look here, especially as she moves on to Jessica. Like, oh, Jessica, I would have had your back. Just as like, what do you want me to do?
Right?
What did I do? I saved myself. You were going to put me up for nomination. I stopped it. That's not why you're there either. It's not like you were voted out because you were overthrown. No, I overthrew. I saved myself, and it had nothing to do with why you're sitting there.
Yeah.
And Cameron was just like, yeah, well, yeah. Like, just totally shut down. Oh, man. That was rough.
Well, I feel like that if, Karma has been working pretty well all season long, so I feel like if Karma is anything here, that Cameron will be the one who's eliminated in the battle match next to have to pay for her bad gameplay this episode, and Tori will make her way back in. But not a great episode for either one of them here.
To be fair, it seemed like Tori was the one with the worst ideas. Cameron was just the one that acted out a bit more. So yeah. Honestly, I think they both kind of sunk their boat here, either way.
We do get the votes from the final episode, or from the final part of the episode. Like I said, it was a 10 to 3-1 vote. The one vote that was not for Kevin, that was the singleton, was from Erica. Erica actually voted against Drew. And then Jessica, Kevin, and Drew voted against Tori, but everybody else voted for Kevin. And, yeah.
I'm assuming, because again, I was a little confused about what this conversation was, but Erica talked to Cameron about like, hey, can we try and fix this, like get it so I assume so that Kevin is not the person that's voted in, because if Kevin gets voted in, then he's going to put you and Tori up against each other. I don't want that to happen, and so I think that's why she votes for Drew ultimately, in the hopes that eventually like the votes go on Drew and then he wouldn't choose the two of them.
Yeah, she's trying to save people that are not loyal to her, Erica. And then at the end, when they eventually put into the battle match, she's crying for them again, for people who are not loyal to her. So, she was trying to save them, trying to fix it, trying to say, hey, like she was even willing to vote against Drew, which she actually did. In the end, she was the only person who voted against Drew, but she was the only person that was willing to go out there and try to save Cameron and Tori from Kevin being voted out, because she knew that Kevin was going to select Cameron and Tori for the battle match. That's how much she was true to Cameron and Tori. Like I said, I stan Erica.
Yes. So that's about how it went. It seems like this is really starting to slowly, again, there aren't really any solid groups that I'm aware of, at least, but it does seem like the gender divide is widening. That this initial guys alliance thing was a thing. The guys were attacked, they all ran to their respective corners, but as Ty makes his way back in, he says to Drew and them, like, hey, I'm with you guys. And it seems like the guys are kind of reforming to some degree. We've got Drew, he was with Kevin. Zach is there with them. He gets information from Drew. Ty is with them now. Yeah, secret information. And then Thomas is trying to reform that bond, but he is also still not really concretely with them. It seems like he's still a rat. I don't think you can
count on Thomas at any given time. Yeah. But I feel like this is we've seen this in reality TV gaming before, where you speak something into existence and then it happens. Like Drew talked about the fact that people have been talking about a man's alliance, and eventually, like, because so many people are talking about it, you almost force them to come together because they are worried about being targeted because they're in a man's alliance. So it's almost like they're whipping it up out of their own thoughts, that they caused the men to work together simply because they were being targeted here.
And of course the women were all talking like, oh, we don't want to appear that we have a women's alliance by putting 3 guys up, like that was a thing, because they're talking about working together as women. But it seems like they're all kind of, or at least some of them are secretly targeting others, like Cameron and Tori wanted Erica gone, and Tori wants Jayla gone, and Jayla was like, that's fine if Jess gets put up, and all of that stuff. So it doesn't seem like all of the women, it seems like in particular Jess and Kristen seem to be on the outs of that group. Jayla is kind of with them, but not. Now Tori and Cameron are, facing off against each other. There's tension between those two and Erica. So it doesn't seem like the women are too cohesive from this point. It doesn't
seem like
forward.
The men are that either very cohesive, because in the first round it was 5-4, and Zach was actually the deciding vote there. If Zach voted in favor of Drew being nominated. If he votes down there, then it wouldn't have gone through, and they would have been able to successfully trick the Knights, and Drew would have been saved round 1.
I was confused about that. If that was a plan, if he knew what he was doing there.
I don't know what Zach's doing. I just don't. I mean, you look, he's not getting the confessionals because he's not that riveting on television, and that's why I don't understand his plan. But I thought it was very telling that I've been dragging Ty and Zach for since the beginning of the season, and the contestants ranked each other based on their perceived popularity in the game, and oh look, who's at the bottom? Ty and Zach. So at least I know what I'm talking about.
Oh boy. So that seems like, and then of course again there are some guys that are not working with the other guys, the bros maybe I should say, like Hunter, who's kind of doing his own thing. We've got Dustin, who is seemingly playing like the I'll just help out whoever kind of game, and then of course Thomas, who's with some people, but maybe I don't know where Thomas is.
No, I don't think Thomas even knows where Thomas is at this point.
We've got Drew, who just wants to get to his area of comfortability, and that is that isn't just one more round after this one because he survived this one, and that means that he'll get to where he can get to his strengths. So that's the battle matches. He's confident that once he gets to the jury portion of the game, where you cannot be just straight up voted out, that you have a chance to battle back in every situation, that is when he is going to be able to get to the end, because he's going to win all those battle matches because he's so good at all of the things that they've done so far. Then he definitely would have won all of them.
I mean, like, I wouldn't want to bet against him. I mean, I'm with you in terms of,
him.
like, oh, you would overall, or just on any given battle match, I would put my money on Drew. I would just say that.
Well, I mean, on any given, I mean, I think that because anybody physical is going to have a distinct advantage over anybody that is not physical, and anything that is physical, more so than a mental person has an advantage over somebody who is not a mental threat in mental competitions, because there's more variance and more chance involved in mental competitions than physical ones. And that's what we talked about a lot in Big Brother 21, where in a physical competition, big jacked dude is never going to lose to not jacked, like 70-year-old person.
Right.
And so that gives him, I think, an edge. However, over the course of time, you're going to run into mental competitions where he still could win, but he does not have that distinct advantage anymore. And I think that's where he overestimates. Just because any given one he might have the best chance to win does not mean that over the course of all of them, he will be able to feel confident that he will make it all the way through.
Yep, I still think that, first of all, we talked about alliances. Obviously, Drew and Erica, I feel like they have some sort of a working relationship. That I feel like that they will stay true to each other going into this next round. In fact, by the way, a programming note, Sequester will not air an episode next Sunday because of Thanksgiving, and even Audrey and the people who work on Sequester have to take a holiday off. So we will see you all 2 weeks from now, not this coming Monday, but the Monday beyond that. And the next episode of Sequester will be 2 weeks from now. But in that episode, I do worry about Drew and Erica being the target of the people who are of the house. And I'm hoping that here's the thing. I really felt like they should have gotten Drew out here, but I understand why they went for Kevin based on him telling them that he was going to pick Cameron and Tori for the battle match. They should have gotten out Drew, even if he hadn't said that, I feel like, because like, you don't know what the twist holds for episode number 5. You don't know if the twist is going to make it impossible to get somebody like Drew out of the game, or very, very difficult. We saw, like, last season, there were the even and odds rounds and the lowest vote rounds, and there's all sorts of twists that Sequester can throw at you to prevent a majority from getting their way. So even if they are worried about Drew here, I do worry about the fact that they are going to let him get to the jury, and I just say I wouldn't want to vote against him or bet against him in a battle match. But you're right in that you never know what kind of Bill points out in the chat, like the stepping to squares competition or the cotton balls competition. Kim Matina, the winner of last season, famously beat Hamza, who's like 25 years younger than her and probably more physical in a competition. So you never know what's going to be up for these competitions. But he's so hungry that I would not want to bet against him just on his sheer competitive juices alone.
Yes, and also you should want him gone before the jury if you are a player, for a couple of reasons. Because again, because he has a better chance in any given battle match, because if you run into a physical competition against Drew, you are probably going to lose, like this tug of war one. And if that is the case, you want that kind of person removed from the game before it becomes the way that you determine who stays and who goes in the jury portion. Again, a couple of reasons. If he's the one that's voted out, you don't want to have to face him if he chooses you to face off in a battle match. If it's physical, you've lost. Anybody else, if it's physical, it's maybe 50-50. If it's mental, it's 50-50. If he chooses you and it's physical, you've probably lost. That's bad. Also, he is one person in the game that other people aren't likely to choose for a battle match if they have the option. So that's one less person that can be chosen that's not you in the jury portion of the game. That's why somebody like him, you definitely want him gone before the jury phase if you can make that happen. Kevin, I feel like, is not as physically intimidating, is not as intimidating when it comes to a battle match, and I definitely would have preferred to see Drew gone over Kevin if I was in the game. However, because Kevin states his obvious targets, it guarantees that I'm going to be safe this round, so I would probably go with Kevin just because of what he said.
Yeah, I would too, and that's really unfortunate. For those of you who are not aware or didn't watch season 2 of Sequester, the game changes once we get to jury. Like, you see what's happening right now. Somebody's voted off, and then that person picks 2 people for a battle match, and 2 people leave every week. But moving into the jury, once we get to the jury portion, the person who's voted off gets to select somebody for a battle match, and the winner of that battle match gets to stay in the game. The loser gets to be eliminated. So once you get to the jury, you will not be eliminated from the game unless you lose a battle match. And that is really important to keep in mind as you move along.
Yes. So it's basically what we have for you going into the next episode, which will take place in just under 2 weeks now. We are going to see the Tori versus Cameron battle match. And then we'll head into the next round. And I believe it is the last round before the jury starts, before we see the pre-jury battle back, and then jury will have started, correct?
Yes, my understanding is that that in 2 weeks we're going to see the results of this battle match. We're going to get cycle number 5, which is episode number 5. Somebody's going to be voted off. I believe we're going to get the battle match in that same episode, and then the battle back for the pre-jury will begin at the end of the episode. At least that's what the plan is. To be determined.
Cool, awesome. So then the next episode will start with the person coming back into the game, and then it will be in the jury portion of the game. And I do like that portion of the game. I think that, again, when we've gotten down to a smaller amount of people, the votes start making a little more sense, a little more easy to follow, and it can get very interesting as we get down toward the end. So definitely looking forward to that. Anything else that we need to bring up here, Brent?
I don't know. I feel like I've pretty much came for everybody that needs to be come for. I think that this was a very interesting round of play. I enjoyed the Kingdom. The Sequester Twitter handle made it clear that this is not that the show is not for lazy viewers, so you definitely needed to have an understanding of the way things worked. But I just saw my sister tweet about it, saying that she loved this round of Sequester and she really liked the way the Kingdom played out. So if you can get somebody like my sister, I feel like you're winning overall, Sequester. Good job, Audrey.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, I'm sorry. I have one more thing to say really quickly. The My Weekly Meltdown does interviews with the eliminated contestants, and I know that My Weekly Meltdown's interview with Braden is going to be up on their YouTube channel, I believe, tomorrow. I think it's just Braden. Gina couldn't make it, but I'm sure they'll get her sometime in the future. So look for that and Braden's interview on My Weekly Meltdown on YouTube.
There you go. Well, like I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Armstrong Taran. Brent is at OneLuckyGay. You can also find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, and Instagram Armstrong Taran, that whole thing. So check that all out. Of course, make sure you tune into all of the RHAP coverage for all these shows like Survivor, which has been going on, still going on here for Survivor. It's been a weird season, but Rob has been doing a great job of his coverage. So check that all out. Thank you so much once again for joining us. We'll see you next time.